Some people walked away, and you have been trying to figure out why. You replayed the conversations, you questioned your worth, you asked God what you did wrong. But what if their departure was the very answer to your prayer? What if God removed them to make room for something divine? This is not the time to chase, it is the time to trust. In this video, we are going to break down the truth that heaven wants you to know. When God allows someone to leave, it is never a loss. It is the beginning of a holy replacement. That is why there are certain things God wants you to know about the people leaving and Him replacing them.
Number 1. When their exit is God's protection in disguise.
There are moments in your life that feel like tearing, like something sacred has been ripped out of your chest and thrown into the unknown. Someone you trusted, someone you leaned on, someone who made you feel seen. One day they are there and the next day they are gone. No explanation, no closure, just silence. And you stand in the aftermath with the weight of confusion pressing down on your soul. It feels like abandonment. It feels like failure. But what if their exit wasn't rejection at all? What if it was divine protection disguised in human departure? Sometimes, what you call heartbreak, God calls rescue. He sees what you cannot see. He hears the conversations you are not present for. He knows the motives buried deep within hearts. And because He loves you too much to let you be destroyed by what looks good on the surface, He allows certain people to walk away. Not to punish you, but to preserve you. Not to break you, but to build you into something stronger. There are things about people you may never uncover on your own, but God, who searches hearts and tests minds, knows the full truth, and when the truth could crush you, He lets the lie walk out. It is hard to understand this in the moment, especially when the exit comes from someone you loved purely, someone you prayed for, someone you fasted over, maybe even someone you believed was your destiny. You were faithful, you were honest, you were committed, and now all that loyalty feels wasted. But let me remind you of something holy. God never wastes plans. He never wastes tears, and He certainly never removes without reason. The very person whose presence you're mourning may be the one whose presence would have delayed your purpose. When Saul turned his heart away from God, the Lord told Samuel to stop mourning and go anoint the next king. It wasn't that Samuel's tears were invalid. He loved Saul. He had invested in him, but God saw what Samuel could not see. Saul's heart had shifted. His pride had grown. His obedience had fractured, and God said, "Enough." God's plans for Israel could not afford to be delayed by a man who refused to be modeled. And the same is true for your life. There are people who may have started with you, but cannot carry the weight of where you're going. And because God is faithful, He removes them before they ruin the assignment He placed on your life. This kind of divine interruption feels like betrayal at first. It feels unfair. But heaven is not in the business of fairness. Heaven is in the business of fulfillment. And that means God will close doors you were willing to keep open out of sentiment. He will end relationships you tried to save out of fear of being alone. Because what you think you need is often only what your past version needed. But who you are becoming requires different alliances, different conversations, different strength. So God shifts the circle. He changes the phone book. He rearranges the company. Not to hurt you, but to protect you from settling beneath your calling. You might not see it now. You might still be wiping tears off your pillow at night. You might still be checking your phone, hoping for one more text. But soon, clarity will flood in like light through a cracked door. You will begin to see how much peace you have, how your energy is no longer drained, how your thoughts are no longer crowded by confusion. You will start to walk lighter, pray stronger, smile again, and you'll realize you didn't lose anything at all. You were being delivered. God doesn't just protect you from enemies. He sometimes protects you from friends who become enemies, from lovers who start out pure but turn possessive, from business partners who begin with vision but end with betrayal. He knows the unseen trajectory of every heart, and He knows that even good people can become toxic in the wrong reasons. So He removes, and that removal feels like a wound, but in reality, it is a shield. What hurt you was never meant to stay with you. and what left you was never meant to define you. Jesus knows this pain intimately. He fed Judas, he washed his feet, he loved him, and yet Judas betrayed him. But that betrayal was not the end. It was the path to crucifixion. And crucifixion was the doorway to resurrection. So don't curse the betrayal. Don't mourn the walking away forever. At some point, you must lift your eyes and say, God, I trust you. I trust that whoever leaves me is not stronger than the one who remains with me. I trust that your plan includes protection. I trust that if they were meant to stay, they would not have been able to leave. I trust that your no today is a bigger yes tomorrow. Their exit is not your end. It is your beginning. And while it might take some time for your heart to catch up with this truth, your spirit already knows you're being protected.
Number 2. The pain of rejection is often the path to redirection. Rejection has a sting that goes deeper than most people admit. It is not just about someone saying no to you, it's about the silent questions that rise afterward. Was I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? Am I too much or not enough? Rejection touches the tender places of your soul, the places that crave belonging, validation, and love. And yet, if you listen closely through the tears, you will hear a whisper from heaven saying, "This is not the end. This is redirection." There are roads we would never leave if they did not collapse. There are people we will never let go of unless they hurt us. There are seasons we will never step out of if we did not experience the bitter push of rejection. And while God is gentle and kind, He also knows when to allow a breaking that births a blessing. The pain of being overlooked, the ache of being discarded, the loneliness that creeps in when someone walks away. All of these are tools in the hand of a sovereign God who knows how to turn what the enemy meant for evil into a highway towards purpose. Joseph was rejected by his own brothers, stripped of his coat, sold into slavery, lied on by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in a prison cell. Every part of his journey screamed rejection. Every chapter felt like God has turned his face away. But behind every no was a divine rerouting. What Joseph didn't see in the pit was the palace waiting for him. What he could not grasp in the prison was the famine he would save his family from. Rejection was not a curse, it was divine positioning, and God used the very people who tried to destroy him to prepare the platform where his purpose would be fulfilled. Sometimes what you think is the enemy's attack is actually heaven's interruption. You were going one way, you had your plan, you had your vision board, you had your timeline, but then the call didn't come, the door didn't open, the person changed their mind, and suddenly you were forced to pause, forced to weep, forced to ask questions. But in the stillness, something happened. You started hearing God's voice more clearly. You started paying attention to what you had been ignoring. You started leaning not on your own understanding, but on His word. The pain turned into prayer, the prayer turned into surrender, and the surrender made room for redirection. Rejection empties your hands so God can place something better in them. It loosens your grip on what you thought you needed, so your soul can receive what it was truly designed for. You may not understand the detour, but you can trust the driver. He sees the traffic up ahead. He knows the bridge that is out. He knows the people who are smiling now, but would betray you later. And in His mercy, He blocks it. In His kindness, He allows them to say no, not because you are unworthy, but because you were being saved for something holy. Jesus Himself faced rejection, not from His enemies but from those He came to save. His own people did not receive Him. His disciples fled. Peter denied Him. The crowd chose Barabbas. And yet, that rejection was a doorway to redemption. The cross was not the end. It was the redirection of all history towards resurrection life. And if rejection was the path for Christ, you can be sure that God will also use it to mold and move you. Let the pain be honest, let the tears fall, but do not let rejection define your identity. It is not a reflection of your value. It is not a sign that you are unlovable. It is often a clue that you are being redirected into something greater than you imagined. That person who said no was not your source. That opportunity that closed was not your only door. God is not limited by their decisions. In fact, sometimes He allows their rejection so that He alone gets the glory when your destiny unfolds. Think back to the times you begged God for something He didn't give, the job that felt like the perfect fit, the relationship you thought was your future, the opportunity that had your heart set on, and now, months or years later, you see what you could not see then. You see how God spared you, how He had a better door waiting, how He developed your character in the quiet before the breakthrough. That is the redemptive beauty of redirection. It may hurt at first, but it heals in time, and it sets you on a path that carries peace instead of pressure. You don't need to chase those who reject you. You don't need to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. You were created by God, chosen by Him, and filled with purpose that no human rejection can erase. Their no is not the end. Their departure is not your disqualification. Their silence does not silence your calling. Let their rejection become your redirection. Let it turn your face back towards the one who never leaves, never forsakes, never misjudges, never underestimates. God sees you fully, loves you completely, and guides you perfectly. Number 3. God removes what distracts you from destiny. Sometimes, the greatest threat to your destiny is not a demon but a distraction. Not something evil, but something that looks good, yet slowly pulls you away from your calling. God sees what we do not. He knows the power of influence. He knows how one voice, one relationship, one habit can plant seeds of confusion that grow into full-grown delay. That is why when God has marked you for something greater, He does not always ask for permission to prune. He removes, not to hurt you, but to free you. Not to punish you, but to protect the anointing on your life. Distractions are rarely obvious. They often come dressed in comfort, approval, even love, but underneath, they carry a subtle agenda to keep you busy, while keeping you stuck. God is not just concerned with where you are, He is concerned with who you're becoming. And when someone or something begins to blur your spiritual vision, He steps in. The longer you ignore the subtle warnings, the more abrupt the removal becomes. What you call the loss was heaven doing surgery. What you called rejection was actually redirection from a slow spiritual drain. Destiny requires clarity. Destiny requires focus. And focus requires sacrifice. You cannot hear God clearly when clinging to what no longer aligns with your purpose. Some relationships you fight to hold on to are the very ones draining your oil. Some environments you keep returning to are the very reason your fire keeps going out. And because you belong to God, He will not allow you to remain entangled forever. He will bring a shaking. He will stir the nest. He will cause the comfort to become uncomfortable until you finally see what He sees. It is painful when God removes someone you leaned on and ends a chapter you were still reading, but spiritual growth often begins where comfort ends. Abraham had to leave his father's house before he could see the promised land. Gideon had to shrink his army before the battle. Jesus had to withdraw from the crowds to hear the Father, and you, too, will be called to walk away from noise if you truly want to hear the whisper of God's direction. Some of the people who left your life were not evil. They were just not assigned to your next season. Their purpose expired when your assignment evolved. That is not a sign of failure. It is not the rhythm of spiritual growth. Just like old leaves fall off away to make room for new fruits, certain connections fall away to make room for greater glory. When you cling to what God is pruning, you block the new thing He's trying to do. You cannot walk into destiny carrying what was only meant for your wilderness season. God is strategic. He watches over your journey with the precision of a gardener. He prunes what no longer bears fruit. He pulls weeds to choke your growth. He cuts back not to destroy you, but to prepare you for more. And when you resist the pruning, you delay the blooming. Distraction can be deceptive because it does not always look like sin. Sometimes it looks like an obligation. Sometimes it looks like loyalty to the wrong people. Sometimes it looks like opportunities that feed your ego but starve your spirit. And when God sees that you're too entangled to move forward, He breaks the tie.
That breaking may come through heartbreak, through disappointment, through disconnection, but if you look deeper, you will see the mercy of God in the middle of it. He let them go so you would stop shrinking to fit what you had outgrown. He shut that door so you would stop begging for rooms you were never meant to enter. He made it uncomfortable so you would finally move. And in that moment, it feels like a loss, but later you will see it was an invitation into deeper alignment. There were prayers you have prayed that required God to remove distraction. You asked for clarity. You asked for divine direction. You asked for a deeper relationship with Him. But did you think those prayers would come without a cost? You cannot hear God clearly while clinging to voices that contradict Him. You cannot step into purpose while tolerating relationships that pull you into circles of compromise. The presence of destiny demands the absence of distraction, and God is serious about guarding the future He placed inside of you. When God begins to remove distractions, do not resist Him. Trust Him. Trust that He sees the long-term cost of your short-term comfort. Trust that He is not taking something from you without preparing something better ahead. Trust that if He says no now, it is because He is preserving your strength for something more valuable. And even if you do not see it yet, your obedience is already making room for overflow. You may feel lonely for a season. You may feel misunderstood, but it is in that quietness that you begin to hear the rhythm of your true calling. It is in that stillness that you begin to rediscover your hunger for God's presence. And suddenly, what used to distract you loses its grip. What used to consume your energy no longer holds your attention. You become rooted, clear, unshakable, because now your eyes are fixed onto what matters most. God removes what distracts, not to leave you empty, but to make you ready. And when the distractions fall away, you begin to see the road ahead with new clarity, no longer bound by approval, no longer slowed by people-pleasing, no longer chasing what does not carry eternal weight. You begin to walk in your calling with confidence, and you realize that the pain of the removal was nothing compared to the joy of the release. So do not chase what God cut. Do not grieve what He stripped away to make you whole. Destiny is calling. Let the distractions fall. Let your soul rise, and let your purpose finally breathe.
Number 4. The replacement carries greater purpose and peace.
There comes a moment after the storm when the winds of heartbreak begin to still, and the dust of confusion settles. It is in that quiet moment that you start to realize what God took away was never meant to stay, and what He brings next does not just soothe your pain, it fulfills your purpose. The replacement does not always look louder or flashier. It may not come with the same excitement that once filled your heart when the first person entered your life, but it will come with something deeper, something your spirit recognizes before your mind can even make sense of it. It will come with peace. God never removes something without the intention to replace it with something better. Not always bigger, not always more exciting, but better in the ways that count eternally. Better for your soul, better for your growth, better for the assignment He placed over your life. The replacement is often not a person who simply fills a gap. It is a divine appointment that aligns with your journey forward. While the removal was a shock to your emotions, the replacement will be a confirmation to your spirit. You will feel it, not with butterflies, but with an unshakable stillness. That kind of peace only comes from heaven. When Ruth lost her husband and left everything she knew behind, she was not chasing a replacement. She was following a purpose. She chose to walk in covenant with Naomi and serve the God she had come to believe in. Her heart was broken. Her life felt uncertain. And yet, in her obedience, God was preparing a divine replacement. Boaz was not just a husband. He was a kinsman redeemer, a man whose purpose aligned with hers. Their union became the lineage through which King David and eventually Jesus Christ would be born. That is the power of a holy replacement. It does not just fill a void, it fulfills a generational purpose. God's replacement often come after a season of stripping. You feel empty, you feel passed over. You wonder if anything will ever feel whole again. But what you cannot see in nature is that heaven has already begun reconstructing something new. The delay is never denial. It is preparation. If God let it live, it is because He already wrote something better into your next chapter. He knows what kind of strength you need beside you. He knows what kind of love will grow you and not suffocate you. He knows what kind of assignment you carry, and He matches you with someone or something that will multiply your oil, not drain it.
This principle is not only true for relationships, it applies to jobs, friendships, opportunities, and even platforms. When something is taken from your hands and you trusted God in the loss, He is faithful to fill them again, but this time with purpose, with alignment, with grace that feels effortless instead of forced. Some of the things you cried over will become testimonies that make you laugh in gratitude, because what God replaced it with will be so fitting that you will wonder why you ever fought to hold on to what was removed. You must train your heart to trust in the nature of God. He is a restorer. He is a redeemer. He is not a thief. He does not take from you and leave you in despair. He allows things to end so that new life can begin. But you must be willing to release the ashes. If you want to receive the beauty, you must be willing to unclench your fist from what hurts you if you want to embrace what heals you. God cannot pour new wine into old wineskin. He cannot give you the next if you are still idolizing the last. When the replacement comes, you will know it by its fruits. It will not bring confusion. It will not require you to beg for clarity. It will not demand that you shrink yourself or compromise your values. The right thing at the right time will speak peace into your spirit. That does not mean it will be perfect, but it will be purposed. And in its presence, you will grow, you will expand, and you will find rest for your weary soul. This is the reason you must not chase what God cut, because what He is preparing for you is laced with divine intention. It may take time, it may arrive in a way you did not expect, but it will be worth the wait. The person who sees you fully, the job that uses your gifts, the door that opens without manipulation, the friendship that uplifts rather than competes. These are the replacements God brings to those who trust Him in letting go. And when they come, you will not have to force them. They will flow. You will not be left questioning your value. You will be reminded of it. You will see that the pain of yesterday was a necessary clearing for the peace of today. And in that space where the tears once lived, joy will rise. You will finally understand what David meant when he said, He restores my soul. Not just my heart, not just my dreams, my soul. That peace deep inside that was weary and worn. However, what's as important as letting go is letting God fully heal your heart. And how can you do that? When you let go, there are things you still carry in the corners of your soul. Words that wounded you, actions that confused you, goodbyes that came without warning. You smile on the outside, but something inside you still grips the memory, still replays what went wrong, still wonders what might have been. But healing begins the moment you stop trying to control what you don't understand and invite God into the space where your heart has been quietly bleeding. Letting go does not mean denying your pain. God is not afraid of your tears. He does not need you to pretend everything is fine. He needs you to be honest, to cry in His presence, to bring the raw, unfiltered ache and place it in His hands. When you allow yourself to grieve, you make space for comfort. Jesus said, Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. You cannot receive divine comfort if you never allow yourself to mourn what was lost. Healing flows through honesty. Some people think that time heals all wound, but time alone is not what heals. It is what you do with the time that matters. Time can harden you if you close your heart. Time can turn your pain into bitterness if you nurture resentment. But when you spend time in God's presence, when you pour your pain into prayer, and you sit in silence and allow Him to speak, something sacred happens. The wound begins to close. The sting begins to fade. The voice of God begins to drown out the voice of rejection. To let go is to give God permission to rewrite your story. You thought it would end one way. You imagined a future with certain people, in certain places, under certain conditions. But that chapter closed. Not because your life is over, but because that version of your life no longer serves your calling. Letting go means trusting that God's version is better, that His redirection is not punishment, but a setup for something more beautiful than you imagined. You must stop clinging to what could have been and start embracing what God is doing now. Forgiveness is a major part of letting go, not just forgiving the other person, but also forgiving yourself and what you didn't know, for what you tolerated,
for the red flags you ignored. God does not shame you for learning through pain. He simply asks that you do not build your identity on what was broken. You are more than what happened to you. You are more than who left. You are more than what you lost. And until you truly believe that, healing will always feel out of reach. Letting God heal you means surrendering your timeline. You want to feel better now. You want the closure. You want the apology. You want the next chapter to start immediately. But healing is not rushed. God is not in a hurry.
He is thorough. He goes deep. He wants to heal not just what happened, but the reason it hurts so much. He wants to show you where your worth comes from. He wants to remove the lies that took root in your heart because of the pain. Lies like you are unlovable, unworthy, or forgotten. His healing rewrites the inner scripts, and truth is what sets you free. Letting go and letting God heal your heart does not mean you will never feel pain again. It means the pain will no longer control you. It means you will be able to remember without being paralyzed, to talk about it without falling apart, to smile again, not because everything went your way, but because you know the one who holds your future in his hands, and he is faithful. You may still have days where it hurts, days where the memories resurfaces. That is not failure, that is part of being human. But do not stay stuck. Keep moving, keep trusting, keep praying, because healing is happening even when you cannot see it. God is not finished with your heart. He is still writing your story, and what he writes next will be filled with peace, purpose, and wholeness. Let go, trust him, and allow the healing to begin. You do not have to chase what God allowed to live. You do not have to beg for what he has already removed. His plans for your life are filled with peace, purpose, and divine replacements that carry more than you lost. Letting go is not a weakness. It is trust. It is surrender. And it is the first step towards healing. When you realize what was, it makes space for what will be. So lift your eyes, open your heart, and let God finish what he started. If this message blessed you, like, share, and subscribe for more spirit-led encouragement.